And there you go. So technical problem number one today, everybody. Welcome. We're live and I'm unmuted. I'm Angelique Brewer, CEO and founder of The Corporate Agent. And this is our weekly show, Lead Your Movement, where we interview entrepreneurs and business leaders who are using their platform in order to drive positive change in the world. We are back live this week, and we've dealt with some of those technical challenges we were having when we were broadcasting from a special location last week. So hopefully we won't be interrupted. And because we're live, we are able to take questions, and we love your comments. And I know that you're definitely going to have questions for our guest today, who is a dear friend of mine, a client of ours, someone who's been part of our community here at The Corporate Agent for many years, and who is doing some really surprising work in the world of government. Dr. Maria Church is CEO and founder of Dr. Maria Church International, which has both a government-facing and a corporate-facing division. She is the author of the book, Love-Based Leadership, which will have the 10th anniversary edition coming out before the end of the year. She is also the author of the upcoming book, A Course in Leadership, 21 Spiritual Lessons on Power, Love, and Influence, and also the co-author of the best-selling book, Answering the Call. Dr. Maria has started a movement to revolutionize the workplace with a shift from fear to love. She specializes in organizational culture, change agility, and leadership development with over 25 years working with Fortune 500, local government, and nonprofit, as well as academia. Welcome, Dr. Maria.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here.
Well, I know that people are going to be really interested in what we're talking about today, because when we think about the word love, we don't necessarily think of it as being something that you're going to take into the corporate space, let alone the government space. So this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Before we dive into that, talk to me, what is the movement that you are leading?
So the big movement, and I go deep right away, Angelique. So the big movement is really shifting from fear to love in the workplace. That's the big movement. The focus movement right now is not that it's any smaller, but it's really transforming the world one local government at a time. So that's our focus right now.
Why local government? Of all the places to put your energy, I mean, I think for a lot of us in America, when we think local government, our first frame of reference is Parks and Rec, right? On NBC. So, right, that's kind of why local government and to put your energy there.
Yeah, so that's a great question, one I'm asked a lot. Interestingly enough, when I started my professional career, I started in local government, and I worked in the Parks and Rec department. How about that? So I organized the cultural arts program, and I worked there for a short period of time, about 5 years, but it was really impactful, and I loved my work. But then I was recruited away to work for a gentleman that I absolutely adored. I met them through the Arts and Humanities Commission, of which I was the liaison. And he was a land developer. He worked for a major land developer, Fortune 500, and just gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I knew he would be a great mentor. And so I left local gov to work for corporate. So, and I was there for many, many years, 15 years. I led the sales and marketing division for this land developer and home builder. And when I decided to start my own firm, of course, I was thinking corporate because that's what I knew. And I spoke the language. I had the clothes, I kept thinking corporate. And yet I realized that at least my corporate experience, they weren't ready yet for that message. Not everybody, but in my world, I believed that. And you know how it is when you're starting a business, you are tapping into relationships that you've made and starting to build your business that way. And so through a relationship I had with a county manager, I knew him, I went and met with them, and we were having all these fires in the area. It was when I'm in Arizona, and it was when the entire state was on fire. This was about, maybe 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And I remember after the fire was over, he had called me and he said, I really want to work with you to help our organization retain that vibe that we had when we were working on the fire. He said our collaboration was 100%, our communication was off the charts. We were so focused on the mission. And I don't want it to be a crisis for us to live in that world again, which I thought, oh, that was a great challenge. And I understood the importance of that. And so I started working with them on organizational culture and really started developing and building a program and a process that I've used time and again in other organizations. But it was that experience, Angelique, that reminded me about working with local government. And of course, then I got a referral to another local government and started working in that space. And then the intentionality kicked in. It was like, oh yeah, I remember why I loved working in local government. People are here, super smart, super dedicated people are here because they want to make a difference in their communities where they live. And I thought about that. And I realized that my mission, to shift from fear to love in the workplace, I could work within a corporation and make a difference in that organization. When I'm working with local governments, we're making a difference in the organization, and then it's rippling out in concentric circles into the community. So when you talk about leading a movement and really wanting to empower change and influence change, that was an easy intentional selection to work with local government because the impact is so much greater.
That's incredible. And it's one of the reasons that, when we started the Corporate Agent, it was about how can you take people who are doing all of this work and not just work with one individual here and one individual here, but to be able to work with organizations and affect their entire ecosystem, right? And that's really, the ecosystem that you're affecting change and isn't just like you said, the organization, it's now the community. And then of course there's that community. It has a domino effect. It has further ripples and it keeps going. That's absolutely amazing. I am curious for those of you who are watching live today. There's something that Dr. Maria just said that I just want to flag for everyone. And it's the fact that she thought she was going to go in one direction, but it wasn't until she was really in motion, talking to people out there ready to do the work, that she really found her thing. And I share that, Dr. Maria, because so many folks sit behind their computer trying to figure out what their business is all about. But it's not until you're making connections, you're having conversations, and one door opens and it leads to the next door. And usually after the first couple of doors, there's actually multiple doors on the side of every other door. Like it's kind of one door opens, then the next door, but then suddenly there's like 3 more doors and then 6 doors and then 12 doors, right? And it just keeps doubling. So tell me.
I have to just add something here, Angelique.
Yeah.
It was interesting because when I started working with you, I was still working really business building in the corporate space. And I had worked with other people who were really, you got to get your niche, you got to get your niche, you got to get your niche. And I don't know if you remember this conversation because it was a long time ago. But I remember one of our early conversations, you said, don't worry about the niche. Just get out there and do the work. It will reveal itself to you after you're out there. And I've shared that story with so many people, and it's so true. So I just wanted to put an exclamation point on that. You've got to get out there and you got to do it, and it will reveal itself to you.
It will. When you're in action, it absolutely reveals itself. Absolutely. Yeah. So you're doing this work. Talk to me a little bit about the work you're actually doing with these local government organizations.
Yeah. And like I said, our focus right now has been with local government. We're working with a few private organizations as well, but the focus is with local gov. And so what we're doing is, we go deep and then we go wide. And this is not a flyby, a one-time engagement kind of thing. We are really intentionally shaping the culture to support the strategic objectives of the organization. And so looking at the strategic objectives, we know what kind of culture is necessary. And so we do, like when we kick this off, we work for a full year with the executive team. So, that's the county or city manager, their deputy managers, and the department directors, and then oftentimes elected officials like the sheriff or Different elected officials will participate as well. But it's really with the senior, what would be equivalent to the C-suite, and then the senior VP level in a corporation. And throughout that year, we get very intentional on their culture. And we specifically focus on the core culture, which is really made up of 3 different aspects. And the first one is the why. And of course, thank you, Simon Sinek, for really getting that out there and making that mainstream conversation. But what we really want to get very, very clear on the why, the purpose of the organization. And this is beyond the mission statement. Because the mission statement is very cerebral. So we want to, of course, connect the head with the heart, because then that's super powerful. Then you're all in when you connect your head with your heart. So that's what we wanted to do. And that's what local government does. Those people show up for work with both their head and their heart. I saw it on occasion in corporate, but I didn't see it by the masses, in local gov. So we get really, really clear on the why, and we articulate that as a why statement. And then the second aspect of the 3 of the core culture is their POV, or their point of view, or their how they do their why. And so we get really clear in articulating that. And then the third and final aspect of the core culture is their non-negotiable values. And I say non-negotiable because that's how solid those values need to be. Now, I've walked into organizations where they had 12 to 20 values stenciled on the wall. Okay, cool. It's a visual reminder. But ask people in the organization if they remember those 12 to 20 values. Probably not. So when we get really, really clear on the 3 non-negotiable values, we then define that. Because, for instance, one person might say, well, integrity is our value. Okay, great. Well, who's not saying integrity? Define integrity. Because integrity for you might mean something different for John or for Mary. So let's get really, really clear. And those aspects and those elements become the core culture. So that's almost like the first 4 months of our work together. And it's very interactive. We're articulating and drafting these with the executive team, but then their homework, and of course I give them homework because that's what I do. So their homework each month in between is to go out and talk to their departments and get input, so that it's very collaborative, and that it's starting, at the very top in the beginning to reach down in the organization. And then they come back with their feedback, and we articulate and tweak that. And then we take that core culture and we juxtapose it against all of the aspects of how they function within their organization. So we look at the internal practices, everything from communication to recruiting, to training and development. And then we look at their external practices and behaviors. How are they interacting with their vendors and suppliers and partners, and is it in alignment with who they are and who they say they want to be? And then we also look at the political environment, because that's a huge, huge aspect for the local gov, both internal and external. How are they looked at politically? And then, of course, we look at how they show up. How are they showing up physically? And are all of these aspects in alignment with who they are and who they want to be, with their core culture? And so that becomes very, very deep work. And we usually end our year with a high level, a 40,000 foot level plan to get into alignment. And so then what we've been doing is, in year 2 of working with the local govs, we bring in the next tier of leadership, and they actually own the plan and they flesh out the plan to get into alignment. And so there's organizations that I've been working with for multiple years now where, different groups of people each year are involved at different levels of the organization to implement this alignment plan to really live their core culture. It's not just a cool graphic on the wall or, on their intranet when they log in.
Or on the back of their name badges, like the badge pools, right?
Exactly. It has to be lived. And so that's the meat of it, is after year 1, we really make it live. And some of the initiatives that have come out of that are they're just so cool. It's almost like you're a mama and, you're in labor and you're growing your baby, and then, the baby's birthed and you're watching it grow up. And it's just, I'd have to say, Angelique, this is some of the most rewarding work that I've ever done.
Well, you keep dropping, I have to say, some golden nuggets also in the what you're describing that you're doing. Melanie commented here, Maria, just about thank you for talking about letting the niche show up as you're going. But you just wove something else in that I don't want folks to miss. You just said about this is what we do in year one, and then this is what we do in year two. And then you talked about it being meaningful work, right? When we work with a lot of people who first come into work with us, they're selling like 3-month coaching packages to one manager, especially coaches, right? They'll come in, they have a training workshop, a half a day, a full day. They might coach one person here, one person there. And, our argument at the Corporate Agent has always been you need client journeys. You can't do transformative, meaningful work. I'm not saying not to have workshops. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that the real change takes time to happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in a 3-hour training workshop on reducing team conflict, right? And so, the journey that you're describing is, I imagine it would be quite meaningful because it's not like you show up and throw up your information, walk out the door. You are there with them as they're going through that transformative process. So I just wanted to really comment on that because, that's really how, if you want to be a change agent, if you want to lead a movement with your clients, then you have to stay with them through that change.
Yes.
Okay, but you are crazy because you took the word love into local government. I mean, that's a very spiritual word. There's a ton of spiritual aspect to the work that you were doing. Did you walk in there the first day when the guy called you who said, I want you to help us keep this? And did you say, well, I'm going to transform your culture from a fear-based to a love-based culture? How did that happen? Like, how has this happened?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I learned early on that I couldn't say the L word. Because it would freak people out. And that saddens my heart. And I know that within my lifetime, it will be okay to say the L word. But I also realized that the essence of love versus fear in the workplace was really the mission. And so we could still affect that change without having to shove love down their throat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We lived in love. We acted with love. Love is obviously one of our company's core values, love of the work, love of the client, love of the organization. So we lived it and did that as an example. But I have to say, some people really dig the word love. Mm-hmm. So I know that that's my people. And I remember early on, speaking opportunities wherever I could, where I thought the decision makers were. And I remember speaking at a local SHRM event. And I spoke on leading with love and love-based leadership, the model that I developed. And an HR director from the one of the local municipalities in that area came up to me afterwards and said, "We would love to have you come speak with our executive team. Once a quarter, we do a meeting where we talk about the non-discussables," I think, or some kind of phrase like that, things that we typically don't discuss in the workplace, but we allow ourselves once a quarter to do that. We'd love for you to come in and talk about love-based leadership when you do that. And I said, great, I would love to. And then he said, can you also talk about trust and forgiveness and respect? And I said, oh yeah, I'll let it rip. So that's what's interesting is that there are people that really do want that message out there and in local government. Another time in fact, this was one organization that we were working on with the Culture Initiative, and the public works director came to hear me speak at a Women Leading Government conference. And of course, I spoke on leading with love. And afterwards, he reached out to me and he said, I'd really like to do a leadership development program for my department. And I said, great. And he said, how you talked about that head and heart connection? Would you do that in the leadership development class? And I said, you betcha. You bet we will.
Let me ask you a question. Do you feel that there are people that the vast majority of people are just they all want to talk about it. I mean, not all, like, is it 90% that really do want to talk about it and everyone else is thinking that everyone else doesn't want to, and that you're not supposed to talk about the more spiritual side of all of this? Because I'm starting to get the sense that, especially even with some of my friends who are in the corporate space, senior leadership positions, they go to an awful lot of spiritual retreats on the weekends. I mean, it seems like it's time for us to just kind of rip the Band-Aid off and just kind of put it, not relegate it to some special once a quarter. We can say, we can talk about trust and respect in this room over here. Right. But don't talk about it for the rest of the, Aren't we getting to the point now that we can just talk about it?
I believe so. And I'm also, I've lived long enough to know that what seems normal in your circle doesn't necessarily mean it's sort of normal outside your circle, because we like attracts like, right? But I agree. And I've seen that. And, 10 years ago when I wrote my first book, Love-Based Leadership, I realized that we were hungry and we were ready for talking about spirituality on a larger scale. And the clues were aromatherapy is now showing up in offices or even in the boardrooms, right? You'll have your aromatherapy candle maybe burning or something, or a plug-in. And spiritual practices like yoga and meditation are showing up on the wellness programs now at lunchtime in workplaces. And so there were clues that was happening. The more that I got out there and did the work, and of course I always add coaching in any program that I'm doing to support the work so that it's more transformational and that it sticks. In my coaching sessions, people are hungry about it. They're talking about it. They might not say love, but they're talking about it. They want that kind of vibe more. And so I would definitely say yes, Angelique, to that. And when I wrote the book, it was shortly after the tragedy in 9/11. Mm. And isn't it interesting that 10 years later, when I looked at doing the 10th anniversary edition, here we are. And while
here we are,
dealing with COVID is one thing, but what that did is COVID allowed for this deep and intense transparency that has shined a light on what's been important under the surface, mm-hmm. so that now we can address it, like you're saying, more than once a quarter. So yeah. I think the big picture of what's happening now is almost a repeat of 10 years ago, and I'm sure a repeat of 10 or 20 years before that, and so on and so forth, because how the universe gives us the opportunity to learn the lesson again and again and again until we do. And so, here we are, and yes, we're ready. Now, that said, when we're ready, the yin and the yang, right? The antithesis of that is also going to rise up. And so that's where we're starting to see some of the deep, intense challenges that we're facing, not only nationwide, but worldwide right now.
Yeah.
Because it's like the cat's out of the bag, know? And so as we see all this beautiful, positive, love-based work happening, we're going to see some resistance coming too. And so we just have to be ready for that and really stand in what I believe is the most powerful force on the planet. And that's love.
Yeah. The light, right? The light. So there was a moment that you had, I was with you when you had this moment. We were in a very special, I think, a very sacred place on earth, filled with, we were there with, I don't know, what was it? 25 of us or so. It wasn't very many of us.
I think it was like 30 total.
Yeah.
Including the speakers. Yeah.
Yeah. And all love-based leaders, I would say.
Yes.
Dr. Maria and I, we were on Necker Island. What was that? Just about a year and a half ago.
It's hard to believe it was that short ago, and
I
it feels like
know.
eons ago.
It
Yeah.
does. And you
Good.
had a moment because we had a chance on Necker Island. Richard Branson was there. Some other amazing leaders from around the world were there. Martin Luther King III, I think, had just presented that morning. And Prime Minister Shearing had just shown up from Bhutan to talk about the happiness index. And so we're there in this sort of, I mean, I'll never forget looking out at the water, just feeling almost like we were on heaven on earth and just like the beauty of the environment that we were in. And you had a real aha at that moment. Can you just talk a little bit about that before we get into some of the other sort of brass tacks?
Yeah, just give me a moment for the chills to subside because you took me back there. So yeah, we were there. It was the first morning, and again, Martin Luther King III had just spoken, and I think you and I had talked a little bit about it. Maybe not that day or the day before, but prior to that, how I felt almost like I was working in a split personality, that, I had the corporate and the local gov work that I was doing. And then my professional speaking and writing was all about love-based leadership. And I almost felt like I couldn't marry the two, that they had to be two separate things. And so I would talk about this sort of split personality that I felt like I was living in, which didn't feel really good. And I was just thinking, how can I really talk about love in a powerful way? I wish I could. And I don't know what's really kind of holding me back. And then I think the whole theme of our gathering was
courageous conversations
and leadership. And for me, it should have just been love-based leadership, because every single world leader that spoke, I remember President Santos from Colombia. Every single message was about love and leading with love, and the importance and the power of leading with love, which of course I ascribe to that belief. So it was like, it was almost like, somebody took me by the shoulders and just shook me and said, listen, these are world leaders that are proclaiming their success and their importance in leading in a powerful way. And that was leading with love.
Leading with love. Well, President Santos, and you guys, let me know what your questions are for Dr. Maria, because I want to take some questions here. So one of the things that we had a chance to see, so President Santos, who was the president of the country of Colombia, he ended the war with the FARC. And it was very emotional for me because I had worked in the defense industry, and we had several of our employees who had been taken hostage by the FARC while I was working there. And when they were freed, I had the opportunity to do a lot of writing about their experience while in captivity with the FARC. It was a very emotional project for me to have been involved in their return, dealing with the media when they were released by the FARC. And, we were the team that was communicating with their families. It was a very emotional experience. And so I didn't know anything really about President Santos from Colombia. And so I was sitting next to him, by the way. I didn't know who he was. And then he gets up to speak. Anyway, and there's this video. If you guys have never seen it, there's this video of what President Santos does in order to send messages of love down the river in balls of light to the FARC soldiers to get them to lay down their weapons. And he even had his top general quit. If I'm telling the story, hopefully I'm not, I might have the level of, but basically his top military person was like, I'm not doing this. We need to go in and fight. And instead they used messages of love to end the war. They found photos of them as children from their family members, and they put them in these balls of light and then put them down the river. So if you get a chance, you can find that video online. If you've never seen it, it's one of the most, I think, inspirational things I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, that was a huge break. I mean, I remember that sort of emotional moment for you of just saying, I'm not going to hide this part of me anymore. We don't necessarily have to shove the word love down their throats, but I'm not going to send a double binding message to my clients. I'm going to talk freely about love in the workplace, about the connection between mind and heart and soul. And we're just going to put it out there. That, like, it was almost like this huge weight came off of you. Literally, if you guys could have been there, it was like I could see it leave the room. I don't know how else to explain it other than that.
Yeah. I remember you saying to me afterwards, I didn't think you were going to be able to stay in your seat. I thought you were actually off your seat.
The energy was literally, you could see it, like it was as if Maria was lifting off the ground, you guys. It was a very emotional day, as I'm sure you guys can see, but it was unbelievable to just watch that two sides come together. In the time since then, some really amazing things have happened for you. You've launched some amazing things. I want to ask you about those things. But if anybody does have questions, I love what Bruce said here. He said, love works, really. This is core to what I believe and speak on. Thanks for going here. And I think that's what's so cool about Maria. She's going there with local government. I just want you guys to really think about that. We get questions all the time like, Angelique, can we talk, can we go there in the space? And do you find, Maria, that being willing to go there not only differentiates you, but helps people immediately know if they if their organization should work with you or not? Like, has it worked as sort of almost a polarizing factor in clients seeking you out?
It could be. We're doing well. Let me knock on wood, right? So, but what's interesting is I think we did a breakout session at the International City and County Managers Association, which is the major professional association for local government officials. And I did a session called Leading with Love, the Heart of Success. And let's just say that it was standing room only. And so many people had crowded into that room to talk about leading with love, the heart of success.
What say the event again? The event was for who?
Yeah, it was the International City and County Managers Association. The acronym is ICMA.
So the session was called
Leading with Love, the Heart of Success.
And it was standing room only.
Standing room only. Yeah.
I think I wrote an article years ago on LinkedIn and it went viral. It was called Stop Being So Boring. And I think I should probably write, a follow-up to it, which is, stop being so, I want to say like weaken the message. That's not really quite as concise as I need it to be, but you just went there.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Oh, thank you. Dawn just posted the link to the video. Dawn, thank you. Yeah, if you guys, and Sonia said, I've seen the video. It's excellent. It is. If you guys can watch that video. So since the time that you sort of levitated off the chair and basically the two sides of Maria became one, I feel like there's a scene in a movie of that somewhere. You've done some pretty cool things. You have the 10th anniversary or the 10th edition, or I guess it's the 10th anniversary edition, I should say it that way, of your book, Love-Based Leadership, is coming out. What has changed since when you wrote that book and you put that out there 10 years ago and when you're putting it out there now?
Well, let's just say I added 4 new chapters to it. So yeah, quite a bit. So when I reflected on it, as I was writing in the foreword and the afterword, what's different and what's the same. What's the same is we're still struggling, with fear a lot, in the organizations, in our communities, our country, and frankly in the world. So we're still sort of battling that battle or fighting that fight, so to speak, to have love win over on a bigger scale. But what's changed is we're now talking about love more. And, there's organizations now that are being built around love. I mean, look at the B Team. Look at Tom Shoes, that they're building a business model based on loving and giving to our fellow human beings to help better lives. So that's different now, and that's really cool. I think I was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 books on the bookshelf that blended leadership with spirituality. And now there's several more that are joining me. So that's awfully nice. So that's changing. And as I reflected on the events of the world, 10 years ago and looked at what's happening today, I believe that the message of really leading with love and seeing fear, because it's really subtle. We've become really so used to fear, almost anesthetized by it, that we don't even really notice the fear anymore. So, really recognizing fear and calling it out and replacing it very intentionally with love, that work still continues, but it's happening. It's happening, and it makes me really happy that we're able to talk about it a little bit more now. But really sad that we're not yet there, that we still need it. You know what I mean? I recently reached out to a city manager who is, he's a rock star in the local government space. Everybody knows him and respects him, and he's done some really, really great work. And so I reached out to him. He's always been a fan of love-based leadership, which is how we connected. He spoke at a conference about leading with love. And so we met afterwards and we realized, oh my gosh, we are brother and sister from another mother, I think, or something. And so anyway, I reached out to him and asked him to write a foreword for the 10th anniversary edition. And he called me and wanted to talk about it. And of course, he said, yes, I'd be honored to do that. But Maria, I have to tell you, it's so important right now. It's so important right now to do this. He said, communities are struggling. And in our community, we help each other. We really are engaged, and they are. They're an amazing role model for local governments. And he said, and just last week, one of our community leaders committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And one of the people in my public works department committed suicide. And he said, something's got to give. Something's got to give. And so, the work, Angelique, I don't necessarily always know it, but it's happening. And so the whole idea of leading a movement is that it's not just you, right? You're involving other people to really buy into it, to believe in it, and to move it forward so that it really is a movement. It's not just 1 or 2 or 3 people. It's a whole lot of people helping to affect and make this change. So I think that's something that's happening, that's new, which is really cool. More and more people now are inviting me to speak about leading with love. So like, yay, I can say the L word and y'all won't freak out, and that's cool. We've pivoted our business, actually. This is new. Brand new. We've pivoted our business after the COVID hit. My clients are very tax-based funded. And so when businesses shut down, their revenue shut down. And so across the country, there's a lot of local governments that are furloughing people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary, Angelique, because our local government is, far beyond Parks and Rec. Our local government is our water sometimes. It's our electricity sometimes. It's our sewer. It's our trash collection. It's our police force that's keeping the bad guys off the street, and I like those services. I want those services. And so it's scary to see that happen. And so we've pivoted our business, actually, and we started taking our leadership development program that we do, and we thought, well, let's put that online. Let's just do an online program. And so as I was working on this with the team, we realized very quickly, you don't just take a 3-hour workshop and right. do it on Zoom, right? That is not going to fly.
No.
So I realized that, to really be very thoughtful and methodical about that process, that it had to be in shorter chunks and it had to be delivered differently. And I wanted it to be delivered in an asynchronistic environment. so that it would be much more affordable for our clientele. So now they can still have their people have leadership development, and it would be a fraction of the cost because now they don't have to hire my team to come out and deliver. And so I realized, my gosh, I've got a lot of content here. And so I actually went back into my file cabinet. Yes, my file cabinet. And I pulled out all of the folders of workshops that we've created over the last 10 years. And so what ended up being, a 12-week online leadership development program has now become Leadership Development University. And
which, by the way, you guys can go look at that. It's at leadershipdevelopmentuniversity.com.
Thank you. And so what we're doing is we're actually created 3 tracks of learning. And so the first one that we're rolling out next month is for supervisors and emerging leaders. The next track will be for managers and mid-level managers. And then the third track will be for executives. And that's going to be done asynchronously. And then, once a month, we're going to have real-time Q&A calls via Zoom so that we can get really granular with it. And I'm really proud of it. I mean, it's been a project.
Oh yeah, big undertaking, but it means that you're going to be able to reach local governments all over the country at a time that an awful lot. I mean, I actually think it's going to get more tougher for local government as we roll out a vaccine, for example. At the local level, there's a lot that the government has to do, and their tax revenue, like as you said, has been significantly diminished, and yet they're going to have to find a way to still provide the services that people have become accustomed to. So it's actually just like they're just starting their challenges at the local government level.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the school would be available for even non-local government. I mean, the potential now to really reach out and scale it's incredible. And I'm sure we're just going to see the tip of the iceberg with that. But it was a way for us to still impact influencing, the shift, right, from fear to love in another modality and in another way, and in a way that's cost effective and affordable for organizations, especially our local governments.
Well, I love what you said about the fact that a movement can't just be you. Right? It has to go beyond you. I would also personally argue that you can't effectively lead a movement if you're only willing to be somewhat seen as what you believe in, right? The idea that you're kind of like left, or this is who I am. This is what I'm speaking on. We don't have to take it into your organization. We can take it into your organization in different ways. But I'm leading this movement. I'm not going to apologize about it.
Right.
And I'm going to take what we can do, and now I'm going to make it accessible to more. But I think the order that you've done this is so important. I so want to say that for the audience, because people want to create online trainings, but they've never actually delivered a training to people to see what works and what doesn't work. And the thing that you have done, one of the other things you've done, and talk about lead your movement here, one of the things you've done, and we'll have Lisa on, I'm sure very soon, but you also took the time to know that moving from a fear-based to a love-based leadership model inside of the organizations that you work with, at corporate, at government, you actually brought in someone to help quantify the impact of moving from a fear-based to a love-based. So this isn't just, I just want to tell you guys, as spiritual as this is, and as, much as Dr. Maria has just stepped in to lead and revolutionize this space, she's also done the work to make it meaningful and to get results. And then she brought someone in to help her measure the ROI of moving from fear-based to love-based leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I invited Lisa in, and
by the way, we're talking about Lisa Ann Edwards, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah. So as an independent researcher, I brought her into one of my counties to do a multiple year study, 2-year study. And I knew that there was such positive change there. But I wanted to have, numbers to show it. And then the challenge of a service-based organization where we're not selling widgets, right? What's the ROI on that? So Lisa's so good with research and super smart. And so she did this 2-year study for me. And so it was so funny, Angelique, because we had a scheduled appointment like on a Tuesday where she was going to share the results with me. And Friday evening, she calls me giggling. And she said, Maria, I just finished crunching the numbers. I finished the last interview this morning, and I cannot wait till Tuesday. But your county experienced a 313% ROI on their investment in changing their culture with you. And so they measured retention, they measured productivity, and that was just from 2 departments, Angelique, just from 2 departments. So it was very cool to do that. And then the second year, that's when we were working with the mid-level managers. So and they were implementing the plan. So the change wasn't as fast in implementation as it was with the decision makers the year before. So the ROI dropped to 200 and some percent. Yeah. So year 2 is 200 and some percent with mid-level managers implementing the plan. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I think, that's what I love about what you're doing. You're talking about the spiritual side of leadership and the change at a time we all need it. And you're doing it in a highly professional way behind a platform of research, of programs that take the client on a journey over a period of time, behind the books, behind the platforms that you've built and the relationships that you've built. It's really, I think probably one of the best case studies that's out there in looking at how you bring spirituality into the, business to government, business to business space. And you do it not in a way that's about, we're just going to all meditate and everything's going to be fine.
Right.
The aromatherapy candles are nice, but they don't actually change anything.
Right.
Right. And so the idea of really doing it in a structured way that moves the organization forward. This has been absolutely amazing. Do you want to share anything else? Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
Gosh, we could talk for another hour.
We really could.
Well, no, I would love for folks to visit drmariachurch.com. You can go ahead and get on our list if you'd like for updates on the release of the book. The book will be released this December, early December 8th, I think is the date right now that we're working on. And super excited about that. Like I said, I've added 4 new chapters to the Love-Based Leadership to talk about, the work that we've done over the last 10 years and the impact that we're seeing in organizations. Added a whole chapter on organizational culture and what a love-based culture looks like. So would love for people to join us and, check out Leadership Development University, our latest project. There's opportunities there too for some potential partnerships, I know, with some of the people in our community, Angelique.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing. Sonia just shared, and I want to share this. Sonia shared, thank you for being a catalyst in bringing love into corporate in this manner and creating the space for this much needed work. I'll be picking up your book, Dr. Maria. Love your authenticity. I can attest to the fact that Dr. Maria, what you're seeing is exactly what you get. I mean, talk about authentic. I shared a room with her on Necker. So we had evening, girl talk, after having wine. And so she is just one of the most amazing people that I've had the pleasure of knowing. So this has been absolutely amazing.
We need to share this story, though, of our first night there.
Oh, we do need to share the story. All right, we'll leave you guys with a funny story at the end. So because Dr. Maria and I went to Necker together, but not together, right? We're married. And so, but we were sharing a room. They put us in this, what would you call that little villa that we were in.
It was like a casita. It was a private casita. We had our own private pool, and it was just so cool.
It was amazing. We had our two
And
little
then an outdoor shower, and
it was beautiful. They had like the netting and the hammocks on our balcony. It was just beautiful, just glass. We could look out to the water. But there's one interesting thing about this little house, and that was that the bathroom was, you had to leave the room. You had to like leave the room, go down a stone curvy stairwell, and the bathroom was downstairs, partly because there was also an outdoor shower for the pool, right?
It was all
stone, very beautiful. But and the roof over the shower was completely open to the sky. And then, a stone floor. So we get back to the room after, I guess we were up at the main house, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the opening night dinner. Yeah,
it was the opening night dinner. So we get back to our room in our little golf cart, which I at one night actually gunned it a little too fast and lost Dr. Maria out the back, and she went rolling down the hill. So there was that.
And I almost ran Richard Branson off the road because I was driving on the wrong side of the road. I was the American side. They wanted us to drive on the European side, and I almost ran him off the road in the morning.
So we had a few golf cart mishaps, to say the least. But then I had to run downstairs to the bathroom to change my pajamas, take the contacts out, guys, the whole like evening ritual. And while I'm in the bathroom, it just starts pouring. I mean, I'm talking like hurricane force rain. It's coming down. The bathroom over the shower has no ceiling. So the bathroom starts to fill with water. There's like a foot of water because it can't drain fast enough. So my legs are up to my like knees in water, and it's raining on me. So I come running back up the steps. I run in the door. I slam the door. And I had a lot of makeup on because we were out at, we had this fancy evening welcome dinner. So I'm in my pajamas. And at this point, I mean, Dr. Maria, I can only imagine what I looked like as I came running up those steps. I mean, I felt like my makeup had just like, I was soaked to the bone.
Soaked, dripping. I've never seen a human being drip like you were dripping. And, you're such a little tiny thing anyway. And so then as everything was all wet, your clothes and your hair, you looked like a poor little drowned rat. But it's definitely something ingrained in my memory. I was sad that I didn't take a picture of it, but oh my gosh, it's here forever.
It's there forever. And I'll tell you, it was a moment because Dr. Maria and I had only worked together in a professional setting. So for me to be kind of standing there, sopping wet in my pajamas, I couldn't see through my glasses. It was quite a sight to be seen. And at that point, I think, talk about, joy and love. We just laughed for 20 minutes. And, it was really, I think about just the joy of that environment. And I think about how if we can take that kind of joy and love of change agents and leaders just out to the world in every direction, imagine how different the world would be.
And joyfully.
Yeah. Absolutely. You guys, thank you all so much for joining me. Dr. Maria Church, thank you for joining us and for being part of our community at the Corporate Agent and for doing the brave and bold work that you do.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back next Wednesday. In the meantime, make sure you check out Dr. Maria Church's website. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day.